Now, according to that reform roadmap, corruption remains one of the key issues for the government. Since President Xi Jinping took office, there's been a massive crackdown on corrupt senior officials. Earlier, I spoke with June Dreyer, professor at the University of Miami. She spoke about the new Chinese reforms and her views on President Xi's efforts to fight corruption.
Well, he has certainly made great efforts to crack down. But, you know, there's a saying in China that heaven is high and the emperor is far away, and the corruption is pervasive. And it is impossible, even for the most dedicated person, as we think Xi Jinping is very serious about this, to deal with everything in a pervasive sense. The country, after all, has 1.34 billion people, and the corruption is all the way through the system. So vested interests are affected, and it's very difficult for him to deal with this.
And what's made more difficult, as we've learned, is that many of those who are involved in corrupt practices have bought properties, used their money out of China in other countries. Their destination of choice happens to be the United States. What are the chances that China could get cooperation from other countries, like the United States, in trying to crack down on corruption?
I think the American government would be highly interested in cooperating because, among other things, it's been very concerned about bribery being necessary for its own companies to make inroads in the Chinese market. So I think that certainly the venues and the willingness to help out and deal with this cooperatively is there in Washington. But again, the casino owners in Macau, who are some of the same people who are casino owners in Las Vegas, might have a different idea. So they won't necessarily be very cooperative.
Right. The government in China has also talked about more transparency among top officials in the country. I mean, that would require legislation. Do you see that coming?
I see some efforts coming, but will those efforts succeed? This is very difficult to get, and the Communist Party has its own reasons for not being transparent, as indeed, according to Mr. Snowden, the United States had its reasons as well. And so I'm not sure transparency is going to be forthcoming, because how much transparency is good transparency? You never want to let the outside world know more than they absolutely need to. And yet transparency is useful for combating crimes. So where do we draw the line? It's a difficult line to cross.
Okay, let's turn to some of the changes that were announced on Friday. The one-child policy, which we've heard a lot about, is going to be relaxed. How significant is that?
If you have more people, you have to find food and housing and jobs for them, and an educational system. And this is extremely difficult because China arguably has too many people already. Which is the reason the one-child policy was instituted in the first place. And additionally, pollution and environmental deterioration is an enormous problem in China, as people in Beijing have been complaining for the last several years. And unfortunately, more humans means more pollution.